The massive space station slowly turned in the darkness above Kepler Prime. Its metal surface reflected the light from 3 distant suns, creating patterns that danced across its hull. Inside the station, the most important meeting in Galactic history was about to begin. The main council chamber was enormous. Its walls stretched up so high that the ceiling disappeared into shadows. 12 different types of alien beings sat around a table made of pure crystal. Each species looked completely different from the others. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few seemed to be made of living metal. Ambassador Krell walked to the center of the room. He was tall, even for his species. His green scales caught the light as he moved. Behind him, thick muscles rippled under his armored skin. The Vorthan Empire had sent their best diplomat, but Krell was also a warrior. Everyone in the room knew this. "Fellow council members," Krell began, his voice deep and threatening. "We gather today to discuss a serious problem. The humans have gone too far." A low murmur went through the chamber. The different species began talking to each other in their own languages. The translation devices worked quickly to change their words into something everyone could understand. Krell pressed a button on his wrist device. Suddenly, the air above the crystal table filled with moving pictures. The images showed human ships landing on planets. Workers in spacesuits were digging into asteroid belts. Large machines were changing the air on empty worlds to make them suitable for human life. "Look at this evidence," Krell said, pointing at the images. "These star systems were marked as protected zones over 2,000 years ago. Our ancestors signed treaties to keep these areas safe. The humans ignore these laws completely." An older alien with blue skin and 4 arms raised one hand. "Ambassador Krell, perhaps we should first try to talk with them. War should always be the last choice." Krell's eyes flashed with anger. "Talk? We have tried talking. The humans make excuses. They say they never agreed to our old treaties. They claim they have the right to expand wherever they want." More images appeared in the air. These showed human military bases being built on moons and asteroids. The structures looked different from anything the other species built. They were harder, more aggressive in design. A small creature that looked like a walking plant spoke up. "The humans have only been part of our galactic community for 50 years. Maybe they need more time to learn our ways. 50 years is enough time." Krell shouted, his voice echoing through the chamber. "In those 50 years, they have spread to over 300 star systems. They build wherever they want. They take whatever resources they need. They act like the galaxy belongs to them alone." In the corner of the room, Dr. Emily Ward sat quietly and listened. She was the only human in the chamber. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple style. She wore a plain blue uniform with Earth's symbol on the shoulder. Compared to the exotic aliens around her, she looked very ordinary. Dr. Ward had been Earth's representative to the Galactic Council for 3 years. She had tried her best to help her species fit in with the older civilizations. But it was becoming clear that many council members saw humans as dangerous newcomers. "The human expansion must stop," Krell continued. "They are too aggressive, too unpredictable. They refuse to follow the rules that have kept peace in our galaxy for thousands of years." A tall, thin alien with silver skin stood up. "What exactly are you suggesting, Ambassador Krell?" "I am suggesting that we give the humans one final chance. If they refuse to withdraw from the protected zones, we must use force to make them leave." The chamber erupted in noise. Some species shouted their agreement. Others argued against the idea. The translation devices worked overtime to keep up with all the different languages being spoken at once. Dr. Ward finally stood up. The room slowly became quiet as all eyes turned to her. She looked small and fragile compared to the powerful aliens around her. "May I speak?" she asked, her voice calm and steady. The council leader, an ancient being whose species was so old that no one remembered their original name, nodded slowly. The human representative may address the council. Dr. Ward walked to the center of the room, stopping near where Krell stood. She looked up at the much larger alien without showing any fear. "Honorable council members," she began, "I have listened to Ambassador Krell's accusations. I understand his concerns. But I must point out that humanity never agreed to the territorial restrictions he mentions. That does not matter." Krell interrupted. "You are part of our galactic community now. You must follow our laws." "We joined your community as equals," Dr. Ward replied, "not as subjects. When humans first made contact with your civilizations, we were told we would have the same rights as other species. That includes the right to expand and settle new worlds." An alien with tentacles instead of arms waved them in the air. "But the protected zones exist for good reasons. They prevent conflicts over resources." "Then perhaps," Dr. Ward said, "the Council should have discussed these restrictions with humanity before we began our expansion. We cannot follow laws we had no part in making." The room filled with angry voices again. Many of the aliens seemed to think that humans should simply accept whatever the Council decided. Dr. Ward noticed that only a few species appeared to be listening to her arguments. Krell stepped closer to her. His massive form cast a shadow over the human diplomat. "Your species is young and violent. Your history is full of wars. You cannot be trusted with unlimited expansion." Dr. Ward looked up at him without backing away. "Every species in this galaxy has a history of conflict. The difference is that humans learn from our wars. We learned that cooperation is stronger than conquest. Yet you refuse to cooperate with our Council's decisions," Krell shot back. "We refuse to accept decisions made without our input, Dr. Ward corrected. "There is a difference." The Council leader called for order. The chamber slowly became quiet again. "The time for debate is ending. We must vote on Ambassador Krell's proposal." The voting process was ancient and formal. Each species had one vote. The proposal was simple: give humanity 30 standard days to withdraw from all disputed territories. If they refused, the combined fleets of the Galactic Council would force them to leave. One by one, the species cast their votes. The results appeared as lights on a board at the front of the chamber. Green lights meant yes. Red lights meant no. Yellow lights meant abstaining from the vote dot as the voting continued. Dr. Ward watched the lights appear: green, green, yellow, green, green, red, yellow, green, green, green. The final count was 9 votes in favor, 2 abstaining, and 1 vote against. The Council had decided on war. Ambassador Krell smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "The decision is made. Humanity has 30 days to comply with our demands." The Council leader looked at Dr. Ward. "Does the human representative have any response to this ultimatum?" Dr. Ward stood silent for a long moment. Around her, the alien diplomats waited for her to speak. Some expected her to beg for mercy. Others thought she might try to negotiate for more time. Instead, Dr. Ward looked directly at Ambassador Krell. Her voice was quiet, but every word was clear. "Then you have chosen war." The chamber fell completely silent. Even the soft humming of the station's machines seemed to stop. Dr. Ward turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the vast room. As she reached the door, she paused and looked back at the assembled aliens. "I hope you know what you have done," she said simply. Then she left the chamber, leaving behind a room full of aliens who had no idea what they had just unleashed upon the galaxy. High Admiral Vex stood on the command bridge of the massive warship Eternal Dominion. Through the transparent walls around him, he could see an incredible sight. 2,000 ships stretched across space in perfect formation. The combined fleets Of 9 different species had never worked together like this before. The ships came in all shapes and sizes. The Vorthan vessels looked like giant metal lizards with weapons mounted along their spines. The Nultharian ships were smooth and curved, almost like sea creatures swimming through space. The smaller craft buzzed around the larger ones like insects protecting their hive. Admiral Vex was proud of this force. His own species, the Kelthani, had been chosen to lead the fleet because they were known as the best military planners in the galaxy. Their 4 eyes could track multiple targets at once, and their minds could calculate battle strategies faster than most computers. "Status report," Vex ordered, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never lost a battle. "Lieutenant." Drax stepped forward. He was young for a Nultharian, with bright blue skin that showed he had not yet seen real combat. "Sir, all fleet groups report ready for battle. Long-range sensors show minimal human activity in their home system." Vex nodded, satisfied. The intelligence reports had been very clear about human military capabilities. Earth's total fleet consisted of fewer than 300 ships. Most of these were small patrol vessels or cargo transports converted for military use. Against the Council's massive force, they would be helpless. "What about their technology?" Vex asked. A different officer, this one from the Vorthan Empire, consulted his datapad. "Human weapons appear to be energy-based, similar to our own, but with less power output. Their ships are smaller and faster than ours, but they carry lighter armor and shields. Our analysts believe we have a significant advantage in every category." Vex walked to the main display screen. It showed a map of human space, with Earth at the center. Red dots marked human colonies and outposts. There were many more than he had expected, but most were on small worlds or mining stations. "Admiral," Lieutenant Drax said carefully, "I have been studying human historical records. Their planet seems to have been in a state of constant warfare for most of their recorded history." Vex turned to look at the young officer. "Explain," Drax activated. A smaller display screen. Images appeared showing scenes from human history. Battles with primitive weapons, wars between nations, conflicts that lasted for years or even decades. Their evolution appears to have taken place on what our scientists would classify as a death world, Drax continued. High gravity, dangerous. Weather, and many predator species. The humans had to fight constantly just to survive. "Interesting," Vex said, but he did not sound worried. "This explains their aggressive behavior. But evolution cannot overcome superior numbers and technology. A pack of wild animals cannot defeat a modern army." Other officers on the bridge nodded in agreement. The idea that humans might pose a real threat seemed ridiculous. They were newcomers to space travel. Most species in the galaxy had been exploring the stars for thousands of years before humans even discovered fire. "Sir," the communications officer announced, "we are receiving a transmission from the human homeworld." "Put it on the main screen," Vex ordered. The display showed a human male in a military uniform. He appeared to be middle-aged, with gray hair and serious eyes. Behind him, other humans worked at control stations. "I am Admiral Johnson of the Earth Defense Force," the human said. "You are entering human space without permission. Turn back now, or we will consider your presence an act of war." Several officers on the bridge laughed out loud. The idea that humans would threaten them was absurd. Vex stepped forward so the human could see him clearly. "I am High Admiral Vex of the Galactic Council Fleet. You have 30 days to withdraw from all disputed territories. If you refuse, we will force you to comply." The human admiral looked directly at Vex. "Those territories belong to humanity now. We will not abandon our people." "Then you choose to fight against impossible odds," Vex replied. "Your few ships cannot stand against our mighty fleet." Something strange happened then. The human admiral smiled. It was not a happy expression. It looked more like the smile of a predator that had just spotted its prey. Admiral Vex, the human, said, "You have no idea what you are dealing with." The transmission ended abruptly. Vex stared at the blank screen for a moment. Something about the human's confidence bothered him, but he pushed the feeling aside. Numbers did not lie. Technology did not lie. The Council fleet was superior in every way that mattered. "All ships, advance to the human home system," Vex ordered. "Maintain standard battle formation. This will be over quickly." The massive fleet began to move forward through space. Their engines created a light show that could be seen from several star systems away. It was a demonstration of power meant to intimidate any who might oppose the Council's will. As they traveled deeper into human space, the fleet's sensors began picking up human ship movements, but the readings were confusing. Sometimes the sensors showed human vessels in one location, then lost track of them completely. Other times, ships appeared on sensors that should not have been able to hide from the Council's advanced detection systems. "Lieutenant Drac," Vex called, "what are our sensors telling us about human fleet positions?" The young Neltharian looked puzzled as he studied his instruments. "Sir, the readings are inconsistent. We detect human ships in various locations, but their numbers keep changing. Sometimes we see 8 ships, sometimes 12, sometimes only 3. Sensor malfunction?" Vex asked. "I do not think so, sir. All our systems are functioning normally." "It is as if the human ships are appearing and disappearing," Vex frowned. This was unusual, but not necessarily threatening. Perhaps human ships had some kind of basic stealth technology. It would not matter whence the battle began. The fleet continued its advance. They passed several human outposts and mining stations. All of them appeared to be abandoned. No ships, no people, no activity of any kind. It was as if the humans had simply vanished. "Where is everyone?" one of the bridge officers asked. "They are hiding," Vex answered confidently. "They know they cannot fight us, so they run away like cowards." But Lieutenant Drac was not so sure. He had been monitoring human communications channels, and what he heard worried him. Instead of panic or confusion, the transmissions he intercepted were calm and organized. Humans were not fleeing in terror. They were following some kind of plan. As the Council fleet approached the edge of the Sol system, Admiral Vex felt confident about the coming battle. His ships outnumbered the humans 7-1. His weapons were more powerful. His shields were stronger. Victory was certain. The first attack came without warning. Explosions erupted throughout the outer edge of the fleet formation. Ships that had been flying in perfect order suddenly found themselves surrounded by blasts of incredible force. The explosions were far more powerful than anything human technology should have been able to produce. "Report!" Vex shouted over the noise of alarms and emergency communications. "We are under attack, sir," the tactical officer replied. "Hidden mines throughout this area. We have lost 12 ships already, with more damaged." "Mines? How did they place mines without our sensors detecting them?" "Unknown, sir. The explosive devices were completely invisible until they detonated." Vex stared at the display screen as more red lights appeared, showing damaged or destroyed ships. This was not what he had expected. The humans were supposed to meet them in open battle, not hide behind tricks and traps. "All ships, spread formation and advance with caution," he ordered. As the fleet moved forward more carefully, more surprises awaited them. Human ships began appearing from behind asteroids and space debris. They moved in ways that seemed impossible, twisting and turning through space like living creatures rather than mechanical vessels. The human ships were indeed smaller than the Council vessels, but they moved with incredible speed and coordination. Where Council ships fought as individual units, the humans seemed to operate as parts of a single organism. "Admiral," Lieutenant Drac said, his voice filled with concern, "I do not think we understood what we were facing." Vex watched as a group of human fighters danced between the weapons fire of 3 Council cruisers. The tiny ships seemed to predict where the enemy weapons would fire, moving out of the way before the shots were even taken. For the first time since the war began. Hi! Admiral Vex felt a cold touch of doubt. Captain Jake Morrison gripped the controls of his destroyer as it cut through space at incredible speed. The ship Tenacious was not the largest vessel in the human fleet, but it was fast and deadly. Behind him, 11 other human ships followed in perfect formation, moving like a pack of wolves hunting their prey. Through his cockpit window, Jake could see the massive Council fleet spread across the darkness of space. Their ships were enormous, bristling with weapons and heavy armor. Any one of those vessels could probably destroy his entire squadron if it caught them in a direct fight. But Jake had no intention of fighting fair. "All ships, follow my lead," he spoke into his communication device. "Remember, we hit fast and hard, then get out before they can respond." His squadron moved toward the left side of the Council formation. The alien ships were arranged in neat rows, just like their military books probably taught them. It was exactly what Jake had hoped for. The human ships accelerated suddenly, their engines pushing them to speeds that would have killed most alien pilots. But humans had evolved on a high-gravity world. Their bodies could handle forces that would turn other species into liquid. Jake's targeting computer locked onto a Council cruiser. The alien ship was 3 times larger than his destroyer, but size meant nothing if you could not hit your target. "Fire all weapons," Jake ordered. Beams of energy shot out from the 12 human ships. But they did not aim for the cruiser's main hull. Instead, they targeted specific points: the engine housings, the weapon control systems, the communication arrays. The Council ship shuddered as the human weapons found their marks. Its engines went dark. Its main guns stopped moving. Emergency lights began flashing along its hull. "Target disabled," Jake's weapons officer reported. "No major hull damage, but they are dead in space." That was the plan. Humans did not want to completely destroy the Council ships if they could avoid it. Dead enemies told no stories, but defeated enemies could spread fear through the rest of the fleet. "Squadron, break formation and scatter," Jake commanded. "Rendezvous at Point 7 in 10 minutes. The 12 human ships split apart like an exploding firework. Each one raced away in a different direction, using asteroids and space debris as cover. By the time the Council forces realized what had happened and tried to respond, the human ships had vanished. Meanwhile, in another part of the battlefield, Captain Lisa Stone was leading her fighter squadron through an impossible mission. Her target was a Council battleship that was 5 times larger than anything in the human fleet. Lisa's fighter was tiny compared to the alien vessel. She could probably park her entire ship inside one of the battleship's weapon turrets. But what? Her fighter lacked in size. It made up for in speed and maneuverability. "Stay close to the hull," Lisa told her pilots over the radio. "Use their own structure as cover." The human fighters dove toward the massive alien ship like angry hornets, attacking a giant. The battleship's defensive weapons tried to track them, but the small craft were moving too fast and too close to the ship's surface. Lisa guided her fighter along the alien vessel's hull, weaving between weapon turrets and sensor arrays. Behind her, 7 other human pilots followed her every move. They had trained for this kind of operation thousands of times in simulations. "There," Lisa said, spotting her target. "The main sensor dish. Take it out and they will be flying blind." The human fighters opened fire on the massive sensor array. The structure was not heavily armored because the aliens had never expected anyone to get close enough to attack it directly. Under the concentrated fire from 8 human fighters, the sensor dish exploded in a shower of sparks and metal fragments. Immediately, the huge battleship began turning slowly, trying to bring its main weapons to bear on the tiny attackers. But without its primary sensors, The ship was like a blind giant swinging at flies. "All fighters, next target," Lisa commanded. "Let's take out their communication tower." The human fighters raced across the surface of the alien ship, dodging defensive fire from smaller weapons. They moved in patterns that seemed random to the alien gunners, but were actually carefully planned maneuvers, designed to confuse tracking systems. Within minutes, the battleship's communication tower joined its sensor array as burning wreckage. The massive vessel was now isolated from the rest of the Council fleet, unable to coordinate with other ships or call for help. "Good work, everyone," Lisa said as her squadron regrouped in space. "One more target, then we head home." Far below them on the battleship's bridge, alien officers struggled to understand what had just happened. Their ship was still intact and most of its weapons still worked, but they had been effectively neutralized by a handful of tiny fighters. "Admiral." Vex watched the battle unfold from his command ship with growing confusion and anger. His neat battle plan was falling apart. Human ships seemed to be everywhere at once, striking at targets he never expected them to reach. "Status report," he demanded from his tactical officer. The alien checked his displays, his face showing dismay. "Sir, we have lost contact with 17 ships. Another 34 report various levels of damage. The humans seem to be targeting our communication and sensor systems, rather than trying to destroy us completely." "Why would they do that?" Vex asked. Lieutenant Drac, who had been studying human tactics throughout the battle, had an answer. "Sir, I believe they are trying to isolate our ships from each other. Without communication, we cannot coordinate our attacks. Without sensors, we cannot track their movements effectively." Vex stared at the main display screen. Red icons showed damaged or disabled Council ships scattered throughout the formation. Meanwhile, green dots representing human vessels moved freely through the battlefield, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. "How many human ships are we facing?" Vex asked. "That is the problem, sir," the tactical officer replied. "Our long-range sensors detected only 8 human vessels when we entered this system. But we are tracking at least 17 different squadrons in combat right now." "That is impossible," Vex said. "Ships cannot multiply during battle." But even as he spoke, more reports came in. Human forces were attacking supply convoys in nearby systems. Other human squadrons were hitting Council bases that should have been far from the main battle zone. Lieutenant Drax studied his sensor readings carefully. Something was bothering him about the human ship signatures. All Council vessels had unique energy patterns that made them easy to identify. But the human ships seemed to have energy signatures that changed constantly. "Admiral," Drax said slowly, "I think the humans have been modifying their ships with captured alien technology." "What do you mean?" "Each time we lose a ship or the humans capture one of our vessels, they seem to learn something new. Their tactics improve, their weapons become more effective. It is as if they are studying us and adapting in real time." Vex felt a chill run through his body. The idea that humans could learn and adapt during battle was terrifying. Most species developed their military tactics over centuries of careful study and planning. The humans seemed to be evolving their methods from minute to minute. Another alarm sounded on the bridge. More human ships had appeared, this time attacking from a direction that should have been empty space. "Where did they come from?" Vex shouted. "Unknown, sir," his sensor operator replied. "They just appeared on our screens." Vex watched as his carefully planned battle turned into chaos. Human ships darted between his formations like deadly fish swimming through a net. Every time his forces tried to corner them, the humans found a way to escape and counterattack from an unexpected angle. The worst part was the silence. Most of the Council ships that had been disabled were still alive, their crews trapped inside. Vessels that could no longer fight or communicate. They were forced to watch helplessly as the battle raged around them. For the first time in his long military career, High Admiral Vex began to understand that he might be facing an enemy unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Commander Rick Hayes moved through the metal corridors of the alien battleship like a shadow. His powered armor made no sound as he stepped over broken pieces of wall and ceiling. Behind him, 12 human Marines followed in single file, their weapons ready for anything. The ship belonged to the Vorthan Empire, one of the most powerful species in the Galactic Council. Its halls were built for creatures much larger than humans, with ceilings that stretched high above their heads. Emergency lights cast strange shadows on the walls, making the place feel like a haunted tomb. "Movement ahead," whispered Sergeant Karen Miller through the radio. She was the squad scout, always moving 50 meters in front of the main group. Rick held up his hand, and his Marines immediately stopped and took cover behind whatever they could find. Years of training had taught them to move as one unit, reading each other's signals without needing words. Through his helmet's display, Rick could see what Karen's cameras were showing him. 3 Vorthan soldiers were setting up some kind of defensive position around a corner. They had weapons that could probably cut through human armor, but they were not expecting an attack from this direction. "Miller, can you get above them?" Rick asked quietly. "Already on it, sir." Karen was using her armor's magnetic boots to walk up the wall and across the ceiling. The Vorthans were looking down the corridor, waiting for enemies to come from the front. They never thought to look. "Up, in position," Karen reported. "Go." Karen dropped from the ceiling like a spider, landing directly behind the alien soldiers. Her weapon fired 3 times before they even knew she was there. The Vorthans collapsed without making a sound. "Clear," Karen announced. Rick's squad moved forward again. This was the 15th Vorthan ship they had captured in the past month. Each time, the process became easier. They were learning how the aliens fought, how they thought, how they defended their ships. The humans had discovered something important about their enemies. The Council species were specialists. Each soldier was trained for a specific job and did that job very well. But when something unexpected happened, they had trouble adapting. Humans were different. Every human Marine could fight, heal wounds, repair equipment, and lead others if necessary. They had learned this flexibility from growing up on a world where survival meant being ready for anything. "Target acquired," reported Corporal Tony Rodriguez from another part of the ship. His team had reached the bridge and was preparing to take control. Rick checked his mission timer. 23 minutes since they had breached the hull. The entire ship would be in human hands within the hour. Most importantly, they would do it without killing everyone aboard. That was another difference between humans and the Council forces. The aliens seemed to think that war meant destroying your enemies completely. Humans understood that defeated enemies could become valuable sources of information. Meanwhile, General Tom Bradley stood in the command center of a human space station, watching dozens of screens that showed battles happening across multiple star systems. The war had been going on for 2 months now, and the tide had clearly turned in humanity's favor. "Status report on the siege of Proxima Station," he said. To his aide. Captain Nichelle Roberts consulted her datapad. "Day 43 of the siege, sir. Council forces inside the station are down to 30% of their original supplies. Their morale is collapsing." Tom nodded, satisfied. Proxima Station was the Council's main naval base in this sector. Instead of attacking it directly, the humans had surrounded it and cut off all supply lines. No ships could get in or out. No food, no ammunition, no reinforcements. It was a slow method, but it worked. The alien defenders were trained to fight battles, not to endure long sieges. Every day that passed made them weaker and more desperate. "Any attempts to break out?" Tom asked. 3 times this week, sir. All failed. The aliens keep trying to punch through our blockade with brute force tactics. They do not seem to understand that we can simply move out of the way and attack them from the sides. Tom smiled grimly. The Council military academies taught their officers to fight set-piece battles with clear objectives and predictable outcomes. Human commanders had learned their tactics in wars where the enemy changed the rules constantly. On another screen, Tom could see the results of similar operations throughout Council space. Human forces were systematically dismantling the enemy's ability to wage war. They targeted supply depots, communication centers, and training facilities. Each successful mission made the Council weaker and more confused. The humans had also discovered something else about their enemies. The different Council species did not really trust each other. They had been forced together by necessity, but old rivalries and jealousies remained. Just below the surface, human intelligence operations were carefully exploiting these weaknesses. Captured communications showed that Vorthan commanders blamed the Neltharians for tactical failures. Kelthani admirals complained that other species were not following orders properly. The unity that had started the war was beginning to crack. "Sir," Captain Roberts said, "we are receiving a transmission from Admiral Johnson. The capture of the Council's main fleet is complete." Tom turned to look at the main display screen. It showed Admiral Johnson standing on the bridge of the captured flagship Eternal Dominion. Behind him, human technicians were working alongside alien prisoners to study the ship's advanced systems. "General Bradley," Admiral Johnson said through the communication link, "we now control 68% of the original Council fleet. Most ships are intact with minimal damage. The prisoners are cooperating fully with our research teams." "Excellent work, Admiral. What about Admiral Vex?" "In custody, sir. He has been quite helpful in explaining Council military procedures. I think he finally understands what his forces were really facing." Tom could imagine the alien admiral's shock. Vex had probably expected to fight a short, clean war against a primitive enemy. Instead, he had found himself trapped in a conflict against an opponent that seemed to learn and adapt faster than should be possible. The truth was that humans had been preparing for this war long before the Council ultimatum. Earth's intelligence services had been studying alien technology and tactics for decades. When the fighting began, humanity was ready with plans that their enemies could never have anticipated. "Any word from our deep reconnaissance teams?" "Tom," asked Captain Roberts. "Yes, sir. Teams have successfully infiltrated Council territory in 7 different sectors. They report that civilian populations are demanding an end to the war. Several Council member species are beginning to question their leadership." Tom walked to the large window that looked out into space. In the distance, he could see human ships moving in perfect formation. Each vessel represented thousands of hours of planning, training, and preparation. The Council had expected to fight against desperate refugees fleeing to safety. Instead, they had awakened something much more dangerous. The war was not over yet. But Tom could see how it would end. The Council had made the mistake of thinking that because humans were new to space, they were also new to warfare. They had forgotten that Earth was a world where conflict had shaped every aspect of human development. Now, they were learning what it meant to fight against a species that had never known true peace. Ambassador Krell stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council with his head bowed in shame. The same chamber where he had demanded war against humanity now felt like a tomb. The crystal table that had once reflected the light of unity was now cracked in several places, damaged during the evacuation from the previous Council station. The proud Vorthan diplomat no longer looked like the confident warrior who had pushed for military action. Deep scars ran across his scaled face, souvenirs from a human boarding action that had captured his flagship 3 weeks earlier. His armor was dented and his voice, once strong and commanding, now carried the weight of defeat. Around the table, representatives from the remaining Council species sat in stunned silence. Many chairs were empty. 3 species had already withdrawn from the Council entirely, seeking separate peace agreements with humanity. Two others had lost so many ships that they could no longer participate in any meaningful way. "Fellow council members," Krell began, his voice barely above a whisper, "I stand before you today to report the complete failure of our military campaign against the human species." A holographic display activated above the table, showing the current state of the war. Where once 2,000 proud council ships had sailed into human space, fewer than 300 remained operational. Red indicators marked captured vessels, destroyed bases, and occupied territories throughout council space. The most shocking revelation was not the losses, but where those losses had occurred. Human forces had not simply defended their territory. They had launched counterattacks that reached deep into the heart of council civilization. Major naval bases that had stood for 1,000 years were now under human control. "The humans," Krell continued, "have proven to be unlike any enemy we have ever faced. They do not fight like civilized beings, they fight like—" He paused, searching for words that could explain what he had witnessed. "They fight like the universe itself is trying to kill them, and they refuse to die." An elderly Kelthani representative raised one of his four hands. "Ambassador Krell, explain to us how this happened." "Our intelligence report said human technology was inferior to ours." Krell activated another display showing images from various battles. The pictures told a story of technological adaptation that seemed impossible. Human ships that had started the war with simple energy weapons now carried devices that appeared to be combinations of technologies from multiple council species. "The humans learn," Krell said simply. "Every ship they capture, every piece of equipment they examine, every prisoner they interrogate, teaches them something new." Within days of capturing Vorthan vessels, their own ships began using our shield technology. When they took Neltharian cruisers, they integrated our navigation systems into their fleet. A small, insect-like being clicked its mandibles nervously. "But surely they cannot master our technology so quickly. These systems took us centuries to develop." "That is what we thought," Krell replied. "But humans do not try to understand our technology the way we developed it. They take pieces from different species and combine them in ways we never imagined. They make our own weapons work better than we ever could." The truth was even more disturbing than Krell was willing to admit publicly. Human engineers had not just copied council technology. They had improved it. Captured Vorthan weapons in human hands were 30% more efficient than the original designs. Neltharian shields adapted by humans could withstand twice as much damage as their creators had intended. Dr. Emily Ward entered the chamber through the same doors she had walked through months earlier. But this time, she was not alone. Admiral Collins accompanied her, along with a full staff of human military and diplomatic personnel. They wore simple uniforms without decoration, but everyone in the room could feel the quiet confidence they carried. The contrast was startling. Where the council representatives looked defeated and broken, the humans appeared calm and professional. They had not come as conquerors gloating over victory. They had come as negotiators ready to discuss terms. Dr. Ward took the same position at the center of the room where she had stood during the ultimatum. The irony was not lost on anyone present. "Honorable council members," she began, "we are here to discuss the end of hostilities between our species." The council leader, looking much older than he had at the start of the war, nodded wearily. "What? Are humanity's terms for our surrender?" "We prefer to think of this as a negotiated peace," Dr. Ward replied diplomatically. "Humanity seeks recognition of our territorial claims in the disputed sectors. We also require compensation for the unprovoked attack on our colonies and shipping." These terms were surprisingly moderate. Many council members had expected demands for total submission or the dissolution of their governments. "Additionally," Dr. Ward continued, "we propose a restructuring of the Galactic Council to include representation for younger species that have previously been excluded from decision-making processes. Ambassador Krell looked up sharply. You want to change the fundamental structure of galactic civilization. Galactic civilization has already changed. Admiral Collins spoke for the first time. Her voice was matter-of-fact, without emotion. The question is whether that change will be managed through cooperation or imposed through continued conflict. She activated her own holographic display. The images showed human fleets positioned throughout Council space. The ships were not attacking, but their presence sent a clear message about humanity's current military capabilities. Our intelligence estimates suggest, Admiral Collins continued, that continued resistance would require at least 5 more years of warfare. During that time, we calculate that 70% of current Council infrastructure would be destroyed or captured. The numbers were devastating, but not surprising. Council military experts had reached similar conclusions in their private reports. A Neltharian diplomat stood up, his blue skin pale with stress. What guarantee do we have that humanity will honor these peace terms? Your species has shown a remarkable capacity for warfare. How do we know you will not simply conquer us all eventually? Dr. Ward looked directly at the Neltharian. Because conquest was never our goal. We wanted to be left alone to develop our civilization in peace. When that option was taken away from us, we defended ourselves. Now we want to return to peaceful expansion and trade. But you have proven you are the superior military force in the galaxy, another council member protested. You could take whatever you wanted. Admiral Collins stepped forward. What we want is stability. Conquest creates resistance, and resistance creates endless conflict. We learned that lesson from our own history. She paused to let her words sink in before delivering the final revelation. The military force you have been fighting represents approximately 20% of humanity's total defensive capabilities. The remaining 80% has been held in reserve in case this conflict spread to other parts of the galaxy. The chamber fell completely silent. Even Ambassador Krell, who had witnessed human capabilities firsthand, looked shocked by this information. The implication was clear. Humanity had fought and won a war against the greatest military alliance in galactic history using only a fraction of their available forces. The full extent of human military power remained a mystery that no council member wanted to explore. Dr. Ward placed a datapad on the crystal table. These are our complete terms for ending the war. We believe they are fair and reasonable for all parties involved. As council members began reading through the document, they realized that humanity had indeed won more than a military victory. They had won the right to reshape galactic civilization according to their own vision of cooperation and mutual respect. The age of the old council was ending. The age of humanity had begun.